I'm a friend and a member of Office Centers, but more importantly, I am really passionate about heart health. Actually, never thought that this would be one of my passion areas. You know, if you know me, my platform is Carpe Diem with Jasmine. That's my business. I like to say that I'm on a mission to help people live more authentic, connected, and mindful lives. And, you know, we connect with our hearts. I say we tell stories to touch hearts and change minds. And I was first introduced to heart health when my grandmother had a heart attack. And I can't remember what year that was, but I remember I was probably in my late 20s, early 30s. I happened to be dating a cardiologist at that time. But, and my grandmother lived in Florida. And what I learned from her experience was like the importance of having an advocate when you're dealing with the healthcare system. And so she recovered from that. She was able to get a stent. They went in through her groin, and she lived to her mid-90s. Fast forward, 5 years ago, I was talking to my mom on the telephone. It was Thanksgiving week. It was that Tuesday afternoon, and I was traveling to Atlanta that Wednesday morning on the early .com flight on Delta. I think it was like a 4:45 flight at that time. And it was about 2 p.m. here, so maybe 3 p.m. in Atlanta. And you know, this is when people still talked on home phones that plugged into the wall. I beeped in. My mom was talking to one of her dearest friends who's actually a doctor. And on a Tuesday, you know, she was telling me she had this full day. I'm like, but your speech is slurred, Mom. You sound like you're drunk. I mean, I don't think you're drunk at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. There's no reason for your speech to be slurred. And she goes, oh, I just been running around. My mom is diabetic and I haven't had time to eat. I'm like, no, Mom, hang up and call 911. And she's like, no, I'm not calling 911. So here, I'm living here, and I'm like, oh my God, I think my mom is having a stroke. They mentioned during the preliminary conversation that I'm a lifestyle contributor to WCCO TV. I recently, very recently in that time, had seen a segment about strokes and the signs. And I remembered this acronym that you all have. And so I tell you, this acronym saved my mom's life. FACE, arms, speech, and time. And I'll rewind a little. My best friend's dad had a stroke previously, and because of time, no one knew. His wife thought he was just watching TV, so I knew time was of the essence. So I called my dad to call 911, because I didn't even know. I'm like, can you call 911 long distance? You know, which you can't. I called like my mom's assistant to go over. I called my uncle, and the paramedics came, people came to my mom's house. This is another thing I learned. You can refuse to go with 911. So my mom, in her very stubbornness, Leo mind, that Jan, you can see it. It's like, no, I'm just hungry and I don't want to go to the ER and not be able to eat and be waiting around. And I'm like, well, don't you want to go to the ER? And mind you, at this time, I'm frantic. I was at a divorce party. I'm trying to leave the mall. I go to the airport. Delta put me on the flight. You know, I'm platinum medallion. No can do. My uncle's like, Jasmine's probably going to have a stroke or a heart attack if you just don't go to the hospital and get checked out. And lo and behold, she did have a stroke. And they showed it in her brain. And you could see it. She had the drooping of her face. And, you know, she couldn't hold her arms out. All of the signs of a stroke. This acronym is a lifesaver. And it's so easy to remember. Heart disease affects every 1 in 4 people. I will say that, you know, because of my grandmother's heart attack, before my mom's stroke, you know, being Black, you know, predisposed, I was going to a program at the Mayo Clinic. I was, you know, at my thinnest. I was not obese. I was at a great BMI. A year after my mom's stroke, I think just due to stress, I was diagnosed with high blood pressure. And I was like, how could this happen? I am doing everything right. It was it was extremely disappointing. I was angry, I was frustrated. I'm like, I am doing everything right. I am at my best. I am eating vegetables, eating just a little bit of lean protein, not even drinking. I'm living a damp life every single day, working out, doing cardio, working out with a trainer, and then this happens? How could this happen? And I really had to release it, take medicine, but I'm just amazed at how many people, when I had my diagnosis and I was, distraught, and I really will say I was distraught, and that's probably dramatic, but I have a flair for trauma. I was distraught. I mean, I wasn't suicidal, but I was distraught. I was just upset that this happened to me, that I thought this happened to me, and I don't think it happened to me. It happened for me. Everything happens for you. But at that time, I was like, how could this happen to me, and why? And sometimes we don't get those answers, but I do take my medicine, and I want everybody to know their numbers. And so, the numbers that you should know your blood pressure, you go do a blood pressure check. You should also know your cholesterol, that bad cholesterol. I'm very happy to report that I do have good cholesterol. I have great cholesterol. And then you should know your weight and BMI. And so we're gonna do
and your blood sugar.
And your blood sugar too, your A1C. Yeah, make sure that you're getting your blood sugar tested also. And so we're gonna do a video on hands-free CPR, and I'll do a little demo after.
I get up and look in front of the bed, and there Shirley's laying down. And I'm like, what is going on? And so I shake her eyes were kind of rolled back, and I could hear her trying to breathe, making a sound. I immediately called 911. He said, immediately start CPR. Do you know CPR? I said, actually, I do.
My name is Cheryl Winston, and I'm 52 years old, and I'm a cardiac arrest survivor.
49 at the time.
Cheryl is a strong-willed, loving, caring person.
I'm just so grateful for her. I don't know what I would do without her.
I have 2 great kids. A lot of my joy comes from my family. Life was great. We were in the pandemic, but we were really enjoying just spending time with family. I rode my Peloton a lot, and I had just started a new job that I was super excited about. It was September 6th on 2020, and I woke up, washed my hands in the bathroom, and collapsed on my bedroom floor.
I just heard my dad screaming my name. I could hear he's on the phone with 911.
He had been trained in CPR over 20 years ago, so he started CPR within probably the first 90 seconds and just kept doing CPR until police and EMTs arrived.
They said if I had started when I did, there's no way she would have made it.
I saw my mom getting wheeled out of the front door in the stretcher to the ambulance. It was really scary.
Going to the hospital, everything imaginable goes through your mind. We just were expecting the worst. When I got in there, I said, hey, my wife had an incident, and I was told that the ambulance was bringing her here. And she said, well, what's your wife's name? I said, Cheryl Winston. She said, wait just a minute. And so she went back, she came back, she said, yes, we have your wife, and miraculously her heart started beating on the way here. Even though they revived her, she had a heartbeat, we still didn't know essentially if she was going to be able to recover and do the things she did before the incident. They allowed us to go up and look at her through the window, and we saw these tubes, and body had been cooled down, and they put her in a coma to try to preserve her organs, especially her mind.
I think it's really hard for a child to see your parent in pain. And I was like, I cannot live without her. One of the nurses brought me aside. I just want to let you know, everything's gonna be okay. We have cutting edge technology. Your mom is in the best hands possible.
When I first woke up, I was by myself, and I remember just this strange feeling of, I know something big happened, but I have no idea what it is. It just was an emotion of wow, what happened?
When I went out there, she kind of, looked at me kind of funny. I said, do you know who I am? She said, I've seen a picture of you. I said, okay, well, great. That's better than, not know who I am at all. And about, 10 minutes later, she said, you're my husband. I said, yeah, I sure am.
I didn't get to see my kids until I came home. That was amazing after, almost 2 weeks. to be able to see them for the first time. The recovery from a cardiac arrest is very difficult. My whole thought process was moving forward, and I'm not gonna go home with a walker. People called me that I hadn't talked to in a while, and my family really came together.
It does make you cherish those moments.
Everything that I do with my mom, everything I do with my family, I've been so grateful.
I have a lot of gratitude for the second chance. My son, it's been really great to see him start high school. My daughter graduated from college. And then I'm grateful for the things that I'll get to do in the future as well. 20 really has become a special number in my life. I had my cardiac arrest in 2020. CPR was done on me for 20 minutes. I didn't have a pulse for a little over 20 minutes. And my husband was trained in CPR over 20 years ago. And we're now celebrating 20 years of Go Red. I know a lot of research was done to save my life, and so now it's an opportunity for me to be a part of research that's also going to save someone else's life.
Compression-only CPR. You can learn it in minutes, it's easy to remember, and it can help save a life. If someone suddenly collapses, check the scene for safety. Then, check to see if the person responds to you using the shout, tap, shout technique. At the same time, check for breathing, life-threatening bleeding, or another life-threatening condition.
Are you okay? Are you okay?
If at any time you determine the person is experiencing a life-threatening emergency, call 911 and get the first aid kit and AED, or tell someone to do so. Anna, call 911 and get the first aid kit and AED. Then, if they are unresponsive and not breathing or only gasping, begin compression-only CPR. First, ensure that the person is on their back on a firm, flat surface, such as the ground. If they are lying on a bed or couch, carefully move them to the floor. Next, kneel beside them, like this, with your knees near the person's body and spread about shoulder width apart. Place the heel of one hand in the center of their chest with your other hand on top. Now, interlace your fingers and make sure they are up off the chest. Then, position your body so that your shoulders are directly over your hands. Lock your elbows to keep your arms straight. This technique allows you to use your body weight to help compress the chest. You are now in the correct position to give compressions. When giving compressions, push hard and fast. Compress the chest to a depth of at least 2 inches and a rate of between 100 and 120 compressions per minute, or about 1 every half second. After each compression, let the chest return to its normal position. Watch as I demonstrate just a few chest compressions so you can see what they look like. Finally,
staying alive,
keep going.
staying alive.
Continue giving compressions until you notice an obvious sign of life, like breathing, an AED is ready, a trained responder is available to take over compressions, EMS personnel arrive and begin their care of the person, you are alone and too tired to continue, or the scene becomes unsafe. If you would like to learn how to give full CPR and use an AED, you can take an American Red Cross CPR AED course.
CPR correctly, you might bruise a rib, you might break a rib, but that is the vigor that you need to go with. So don't be afraid of hurting someone. And again, if it's a woman, push those things to the side. If they're busty like me, and just get in there and go, because you could save a life. They just started doing research on women and heart attacks, and women, we have so many more symptoms that we often forget. Number one, that indigestion, we think, oh, we just have heartburn. That could be a sign of a heart attack for women, indigestion, heartburn. And extreme fatigue, when you're not just really tired. Maybe you should go get checked out. I don't know how many times, and men are guilty too, but women, I think, we know something is not right, we feel it, we know we have these symptoms, we go to, we play Dr. Google, and then we rationalize it in our mind, and we still don't go to the doctor. We have to learn to listen to our bodies and be willing to go to the doctor.